All right, guys, we're picking back up. And yesterday we left off where we were trying to run through all of the generic functions that we'd written to do create, read, update, and delete, but do them for multiple data types to make sure that we have done them correctly. And where we left off yesterday, we had a runtime error here when we were trying to test our create method, saying that it couldn't create the record because when we were trying to add the row, it says it was expecting an iterable, not none type. So we are in the process of trying to figure out why this is here. Let me see. The debugger seems to not be working for me. It's a little bit hit or miss sometimes in this online environment.
Yeah, it's not consistent.
Refresh here and wonder why it's not letting me set a breakpoint here. Huh. Are you able to set breakpoints, Adi?
Yeah, but I needed to put the cursor very close to, it was practically under the separating line. Yeah, almost there. That's where I had to take it much further to the left. Almost, no.
You mean like clicking? Oh, there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
I think they're having trouble with the debugger feature.
Well, yeah, indeed. I mean, I think officially the feature's in beta, so rather than being like a full part of it, although debugging is, of course, very important. So no, I don't know if you're reading what I'm reading, but well, let's see if we can get the debugger to work here now. Debugger. You're still there, right? We're just.
Yeah, I am.
Why do we have one on line 14? And are we going to stop in the debugger? Very sad. You know, if this keeps up, maybe I'll shift us. So the problem is that this is supposed to help us both be able to work on the same files. And I didn't really want to get into version control and stuff because we could both be doing this locally, like in a local text editor with local versions of Python. But I didn't quite want to go there because it adds a lot of complexity to set things up, and you don't learn actual programming doing that. I mean, it's a very necessary part of programming, managing your tools and stuff. but oh,
I did that too, and I had to the page.
no, I mean, here's something we can try. Online Python. Right. So what we're doing, we should just be able to copy this and okay, so okay, so we want to step here. I'm just gonna have to find it in the interface here. So we're going to step into this one. And oh. To tell me which line I'm on. Doesn't have an indicator. This is copying GDB, which is a very famous debugger for like C and C++. I think it's C++ too. But I don't know where I am. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I don't know. There, okay, so it does have an indicator. I guess we just haven't gotten to it yet. All right, so wait, oh, okay, we're stepping there. What we really want to do is set a breakpoint like right here. Okay, so continue. Huh, I don't know, why is this one being weird now? All I want to do is debug. Why won't you hit my breakpoint? Oh, it's because we don't, I'm dumb. It's because we don't have the files around. So we can't just, because you see how we're using the CSV files, and so we have to have the files in the file structure.
And it doesn't see them. Yeah.
All right, well, you know what, we'll debug the old-fashioned way then. All right, we can use print statements. Debugger in general, much more powerful than just print statements, but at least this is better than nothing, right? And I do believe the run functionality works okay. It's just the debugging that doesn't work here. Okay, so definitely makes sense why this line's erroring then, because this isn't working. So we print fields right here, right? We want to see what fields is. So it thinks fields is an array. That looks right to me.
So why is it having this trouble then?
Interesting.
I wondered if making new ID a string was a problem, and if maybe if we did that earlier.
No, that wouldn't be the problem here.
Yeah, I figured it couldn't be, but I still don't know why it should be a problem.
Insert X. Oh, I got it. Okay, so there are some methods that that change a list in place, and then there are other methods that basically will return a new list at the end of the method, right? So, okay, so this is because I assume in C#, many other languages, it kind of depends. I usually prefer things that return a list because it makes your code less bug prone, in my experience. If every time you want to change a variable, you have to use an assignment operator with the variable, like you're never going to be like, oh, why is my variable getting a new value, right? Because the only time it ever gets a new value is if you reassign to it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what this is saying is that this right here, and I should have caught this before earlier too. So data here is an empty array, and then we have an array called fields. This actually will not, modify just the data array and leave the fields array alone. This mutates. That's the word typically used. It mutates the fields array right here, which we really don't want, actually. So what we should do is we should probably make a copy.
Okay.
We should make a copy of fields first, like this. And then after doing that, insert. And we don't reassign here because this just mutates it in place.
Oh.
So we don't have to assign data equal to this because this is going to change data. This line here changes data and it returns nothing because it just does it in place.
Okay. Okay.
It's kind of confusing. Not my favorite.
Yeah.
But,
I think I get it. I think I get it. So if you were to assign it, it wouldn't return anything.
But it does change the thing. And so the confusing behavior here is why was it getting overwritten with none? And that reason was because how this would have worked in code, if we do this, so now we're not going to be modifying fields either, which is improper. We don't want to change this variable in any way. That's why we make a copy first here, which is something we weren't doing before. So that's bad on me. But how this line would execute is we execute the right side first, and then we assign it to the left side, right? Well, the right side is going to properly insert something into the data variable that is a list, but then it's going to turn that data variable because the return type of this is none type. It's nothing. This function doesn't return anything. So then it's going to set the variable equal to none type even after already successfully returning, right? So we don't want to do that. That's why we don't have the assignment there.
Okay.
So right now we're expecting this to add a customer, Ariel Manson, and she should get added after Alice, right? So let's try again. Okay, so we printed the data, but now when we go check, there we go.
It's right there. Yeah.
Aha. All right, so you can debug just fine with print statements. In fact, most of the time in college, I don't know why, I was very sad when I realized how powerful the debugger was. A lot of the initial programming classes I had in college, we only used print statements. Now you note that if we keep running this, they're going to keep adding the same person, right?
Now, but why does it add Ariel Manson here as number 3? It shouldn't have increased it to 4. Yeah.
So that's a problem that we've identified. All right. So now we're going to have to come up and see why are we not incrementing properly? So it's not going to do us any good. I really want to set breakpoints, but I keep forgetting it's not going to do us any good to set breakpoints because it's not working. So let's see here. Okay, so we're passing it table name. And here where we want to find customers 2. Oh, I bet you it's because we had a mismatch there between who we were actually listing. Yeah. We actually already had, this is the perils of manually changing your data in the data system. we actually already had 3 people, but we were saying that there were only 2 here, and so this was always going to be wrong. So in a real world system, you're only ever going to want to add customers by using the create function rather than doing it by hand. If you ever do it by hand, then suddenly the count gets out of sync, right? So I think our code's actually fine. I mean, I'll see in a second here. So let's try running this. Okay, now let's see if Alice is 4. Okay, she's 4 now. Now let's try, or Ariel is 4. Let's try running it again. And now we have, okay, so this time it looks like this value is not getting updated, right? So that time, at least the first one worked. All right, so let's go look at our code. I see. I'll let you look at it a little bit. I want you to see the reason why we're writing everything back fine, but we're not writing back the updated one. So I'll give you a hint. This part of the code right here, this is what writes each line back to the file. And right now we're observing the behavior that the ID that we thought we incremented isn't getting written back properly. I want you to see if you can figure out why. So we're looking at the value.
It's writing back max ID. But max ID is not changed into new.
Because
I don't see max ID set to new ID at any point. I don't actually. Well, I see increment of new ID. So new ID be returned, but what's
there's
written?
A couple things we could do. We could make this. See, the problem with just making this new ID is that not every row is going to execute this code, right? So we could call this new ID up here and then just make this new ID. That would work. But you remember back down below where I realized that we actually didn't have to write out each field in the dictionary format. We could just write the whole row. So we are properly in this conditional, we actually are properly changing the value of the thing on the row. So I think everything becomes easier if rather than trying to actually write back, you know, a dictionary entry there, we just return the whole row like this. I think this makes more sense anyway, always has. I don't know why I didn't do it before, just I guess because I didn't know that that was an option. You know, we copy pasted something off the internet and then changed it, right? That's one of the perils in this approach, is that sometimes for whatever reason, someone else did something. And then when you do it, if you don't know that you can change it, you might leave something kind of suboptimal in your own code. But I think it makes much more sense to just write back the dictionary that we get from the reader here. And we can change things in the dictionary like this, but that way we don't have to worry about like writing everything back, you know, field by field. I think this will fix it here because if you look in this line on line 15, we do update the max ID value in the local dictionary before we write it back. So now we shouldn't have the problem of it not getting updated anymore. So let's go check our tables. Okay, so customers is 3. We check customers. There's 3 right now. Alice is the last one. So now when we run this, we should get 4. Okay, so now we have Ariel is 4, and our database ID tracking is still 3. Huh. Okay, so Let's see what it thinks the rows are each time here. Wait, did it even run again? Oh no, it's because we only ran it once, but that should have still been updated to 4. Okay. So this should print a row for each one of them because it's not going to be. Huh. Okay. So why the heck isn't it saving 4? It says it's writing it, right?
Yeah, it is. What's going on then?
Interesting. Well, I'm not honestly sad that we had bugs because it's giving us some practice here debugging, right? Which is, of course, as I've emphasized before, a very, very important part of programming because you'll probably spend more time debugging than you actually will writing code. So this idea of my program's supposed to do something. Why doesn't my program do something? What I wrote should make it do something. Why doesn't it work? Like that is going to be the state that you're most commonly in as a programmer. So get used to it. So we are setting the value of row here equal to the value of this property of row equal to this. Oh, I know. Something did not get copied correctly. Come look with me at the update record and delete record. What's the very last line in these? See, this file would be correct here. It's okay. This one's easy to fix. Somehow this line got deleted from our benefit.
Okay.
So what we did, if you look at the output file, this is our temporary file here, right?
Yeah.
Our temporary file wasn't overriding the other one because somehow the line got deleted from our function.
Okay.
It must have just been a bad copy paste, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
That's not even the right one. Wow, I'm not doing so hot this morning.
And I don't think we have one for this one anymore.
We don't have what?
The shell utility line. We don't have that for this, do we?
Well, we're opening an output file, aren't we?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think we do want this one. All right. So let's try once more. Okay, so let's get rid of Arial again. Okay, and you know what? Now let's actually come back and let's try to add 2 and see what happens. So we're at 3 customers. We only have 3. So after we run this, we should have 2 more. Arial should have ID 4, Graham should have ID 5, and the current max ID in database ID tracking table should be 5. If we did things right. So we have 4 and 4. Well, so that's not right. And that is still at 3.
Yeah.
Still not working. I thought we'd fixed it.
Should we be needing
well, okay, I see it. Unfortunately, we just overwrote a bunch of data in this file.
That was why I was saying I don't know if that line was supposed to be for that, because
okay, I was probably no, we do need this line, but we should not be moving it into this table. We should be moving it into this table. Is there a way for us to undo the changes here? See, that'd be very bad in a production environment. I would have just gotten fired. I overwrote all the data in our important customer table with something wrong. Actually, in a real world environment, you would always back up your data somewhere else, at least if you're doing it right, so that you can roll back to something if something gets messed up. It's still very bad. I would still, I don't know if I lose my job, but I would still get in lots of trouble. This is why you don't let new developers work on the production database. You just don't. That's a bad idea. So it doesn't really matter. I don't, we should be able to create our store data here as well. So, now let's try. Okay, we're going to focus one at a time. First on customers. Okay, database ID tracking still at 3, still only 3 customers. So this time, let me get rid of that print statement. We don't need to be printing this anymore because we figured out that bit. This time, we're writing it back to the correct CSV file. So this time when we do it, we should get 4 and 5. Oh, look at that, 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And this should be 5. Okay. It looks like we finally got it, right?
Yeah.
So now comes the challenge of, okay, so let's go in and let's see if we can do this from 0, right? So we have 0 as our starting record here. So we were just creating records in our customers. Now let's do it for store owners. So let's say that Ariel and Graham are store owners too. There's no reason why they can't be both, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they shop at the same place where they have a store of their own. Okay. Except now we need to add additional information, right? This needs to be what did he wrong?
The quotes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now we have these additional ones, right? And so our database ID tracking, we have 0 store owners at the moment. And right now we're going to add 2 of them. So once this is done, that variable should be 2. And these should be added as 1 and 2 in, and we can comment these out for now. Right. And this is to help us verify that, hey, look, our insert is working for multiple data types, right? Database ID tracking, this is now 2.
Why does it start from numbering from 2?
What do you mean start numbering from 2? It was at 0 before we just executed.
No, I mean in the store owners file.
Mm-hmm. Here?
Yeah. Yes.
It's probably because I had an extra blank line in the file. Here, we can try it again. I think it's probably because we had 2 lines like that. Or maybe 3. I don't know. I mean, I bet if we do it like this, it'll be fine though. If it bothers, I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? But database ID tracking. We'll go back, make this 0 again. Okay, so now we just have 1 line here. We run a file again. We go back, we look at the file, and this time it's like that.
Okay.
So it's because we just had an extra line when we were starting it in the file, but it doesn't really matter. But now we've convinced ourselves that we're properly tracking the IDs and we have information for customers and store owners. And you can convince yourself if you'd like. Would you like to do products and stores as well? Seed some data here.
Okay.
I mean, I don't really care, but the function that we have works now. But if you want to convince yourself by seeing us do something that's, a field that we haven't actually explicitly worked with before, just to show you that it will work for them too, we could do that. Somewhere we have defined. Yeah. Let's do stores. Stores are easier. There's a lot less stuff. The product has quite a few fields, right? So let's come here and create a store record. So let's say that Ariel has a store, right? So this is the store here, and we're going to want to say, okay, so we want to make this, rather than store owners, we want to make this stores, and we only have two things to specify here. We're going to call it Ariel's baked goods. How about say Ariel's a baker, right? And since we have an apostrophe for the possession here, we better use that kind of string. Okay, so that is not the right ID. So what we want here actually is we want to be creating a record for where it matches the store owner of Ariel. And see, she has an ID of 1. So the store owner ID that's going to be associated with the store called Ariel's Baked Goods should be 1. Now, at some point, we'll have to go and write this, but we will be able to get this value because the only people who will be able to create a store are going to be store owners. And at the point where our store owner is creating a store, we know who they are, right? So we can pass their store owner ID to the create function when they're creating a store, right? But for now, we have to hard code it because we're just testing, right? So database ID tracking, 0. So here is the one we're hitting now. We're hitting stores. We want to insert into stores. We want to create a store called Ariel's Baked Goods. And we want this field, which represents the store owner ID. So this represents the ID of the store owner who owns the store, right? In database systems, this right here is called a foreign key. It's kind of why I'm having us introduce it. This is a link to a different table containing a different set of data, right? So we want this record here to point to the other record, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Think of it called
a foreign key?
A foreign key, yes.
Okay.
So in the system that we're setting up here, each ID uniquely identifies a row, right? So customers this record has an ID of 4, uniquely identifies the row corresponding to Ariel here. This is called a primary key. It's a unique identifier for a record of data. A foreign key is a pointer to a primary key in a different table. So here we have in our stores table, we're going to be adding a store. This store will have an ID, right? The first one will have an ID of 1, the second one will have an ID of 2, and so on. But it also has a field that contains the primary key of a different table, and that table is the store table, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to point to a data record in the other table as well, hence foreign key. That's the terminology used in databases. Now, how we're storing the data here, I purposefully set it up so that it's similar to databases, but we're not actually using a database system, right? We're just doing something that's very, very similar in CSV files. And then eventually we'll actually move into using the full database objects and so forth. But we'll get there eventually. But I'm purposely doing this because what we're doing is very similar to it. Okay, so we're going to have a store, which is going to have a foreign key that points to a store owner. So when we run this, we should expect to see the store pop up here. Okay, so it should be like 1, Ariel's Baked Goods, and then it should have a foreign key of 1 pointing to the first store owner, which is Ariel. So if we run this, and this should now be 1, right? And stores, we should have Ariel's Baked Goods pointing to Ariel. What do you think?
I think it's awesome.
Okay, so
yeah,
there is our create. We've now tested create function. So here now we can try our read. Now, if you remember with our read, we had something here for, at the moment, we just had customers and store owners, right?
Yeah.
So this will get more complicated if we ever have to deal with joining on information. For now, we're not going to say who owns the stores here. We might do that later as a challenge exercise. For now, we'll just say that if we have the data type of stores, then we're just going to have name, right? Because we could have store owner ID, but showing the user store owner ID doesn't do too much. What would be more useful is if rather than showing them the store owner ID, we actually showed them the name of the store owner, right? But to do that, we'd have to access data in a different table. Do you understand everything I just said?
Yes. Yes, I think I do.
Okay. So we just added it for stores. These are the 3 things that we've worked with so far here. And we should now be able to so let's say we want to read the record of the, oh, I don't know, which one should we do? Should we do the 3rd person in the customers table? And let's do this, and let's say we want to print. Let's do the 2nd store owner and the 1st store. Okay, make sense how we're calling this? So we want to see the 3rd customer, the 2nd store owner, the 1st store.
Yeah.
None. Yeah, I am guessing it may be similar to something we've done previously, right?
Yeah. We have the show utility thing there. That line.
Yeah, but see, we're not overwriting this time, so that wouldn't be the problem.
Right. Yes, yes, that's true. Okay, we're reading.
So let's see if we get here. Debugging with our print statements. So if we get inside the file and we have a matching ID, we want to print the row. Okay. Okay, so it doesn't think that we have, oh, I know what it is. Because everything coming in from the CSV files is a string, right?
Okay.
ID here needs to be a string. This is a peril of Python not having strong typing. In any other language like Java or C or C++, it wouldn't even let you compile what I just tried to do, because it would say you need a type string, right? If this has type string. Now when we do it, list object has no, okay. Perils of running multiple programming languages at once. There we go. Does that look right to you?
Yeah, it looks great.
And are these the things we want? We want ID and name and cache, right?
Yes.
It looks to me like we aren't getting all the information we want to for these other ones, right?
Yeah, we got a name and the username.
Mm-hmm.
Is that for the customer? Yes, it's for a customer.
Mm-hmm.
And
but we wanted cache, not.
We want, yes, we want cache there too. Why does it give us a username? Did we?
I know why. It's because we are passing this list of field names into the CSV reader. Why? We didn't write these things completely right the first time, did we? It's good though. We're getting good practice here. So
yeah.
We are defining the structure of the CSV file when we open up the CSV dict reader here, except this is not the structure of the CSV file. we're saying here, the first thing is the ID, the second thing is the name, the third thing is the cache. And we're not even telling it has more than 3 things. And so we're saying the third thing right here is the cache. Well, what's the third thing in customers? 1, 2, 3 is the username, right?
Yes.
That's explaining the behavior we have right now. So
Okay.
really what we're going to need to do is we have the general get field names. This is what we're going to have to use for the first call here. So this one, I want that out for a sec. This one, we need to use those names. And then what we really need to do when we are printing the row values here is we need to use a different variable, right? So we won't get the field names here until we're actually inside this loop, and then we'll say field names for read will just be our actual smaller subset, right? And then when we're iterating over the fields that we're actually going to use here, we'll do this instead. Does it make sense what I just did? So the wider outside here, when we open up the dictionary reader, when we're basically defining the structure of our data stored in the CSV file, we want to use all the fields because we need to tell the dictionary reader about all the fields. But then when we're going through and we're trying to figure out which things we want to display, we only want to display the things that we say we want to display up here, right?
Yeah.
And then so then we're going to go through each one of these, and then we're going to append to our row values list here, you know, the stringified version of the row value for each one of these fields. So this will always be a proper subset of this, right? The field names for read will be, you see here we have customers, we have ID, name, and cache. Well, the actual customers has ID, name, username, password, and cache, right? We're just ignoring username and password here. So
okay.
I believe this actually should work here. Well, get field out. Well, it's because we need to define the function above where we use it, right?
Right. Name.
So doesn't
name
like
cache.
So we have name and cache. That is going to be correct here, but here we have name, assets, liabilities. Does Graham not have liabilities? So what did we do wrong?
His liabilities was 8.
Store owners 2. So let's go to store owners.
1,000. Okay, so it didn't print the assets. Okay. Yeah, I didn't do that.
We just straight up got a 3 for this. Interesting. So no. I unfortunately can't stay too much longer because I have a meeting in like 5 minutes.
Okay.
But
I'll try to keep thinking through it too.
I mean, it's not bad practice for us here.
Yeah.
By the way, what you're seeing here, you shouldn't feel like we did a terrible job or anything. It is very, very atypical for your code to not work properly the first time or the second time, or perhaps the first 10 times. Some people, once you get better, of course, you'll knock out easy stuff in your sleep and you'll never do it wrong. But especially when you're writing something that is not like trivial for you, you're going to make mistakes all over the place. And so we just need to get good at practicing. How do we figure out what I did wrong where, and how do I fix it? That is what most of programming actually consists of. So no, we'll jump back into this tomorrow then, trying to figure out why we're not printing the right things here. I mean, I will give you a hint. You're going to want to probably print. You're going to want to print field names for read right here. And then we're going to want to see, you know, exactly what it thinks we're trying to read here. So that looks right to me, right? So why are we, we're checking ID. That's right. Values.append.
maybe it needs to be told how to identify what is what or something.
So why don't we even get there in the other one? Oh, it's because I don't have any. Well, that one I know how to fix. It's because we don't have any case here for stores, right? And we need a case for stores. So stores have name and then we call it like
Store owner ID. Yes. Yeah. Store owner ID.
So now we should be able to get stores as well. Oh, well, not if I can't. There we go. Okay. So actually, these two are working fine, right?
The store owners is not.
Mhm. Liabilities. Did I spell something wrong here? Liabilities. Yeah, I guess we'll figure it out, right? But there, that's just one bug now. So I really do have to go to my meeting. So we'll pick up right here tomorrow, and let me know if you have questions over text later today. So
Okay.
that's where we'll cut for today.